Welcome to the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, where you get multifamily investing made real. Learn from top players in the real estate investment world as they share their secrets with you and discover proven strategies on apartment investing that actually work. To learn more about Wheelbarrow Profits, visit jakeandgino.com, your one-stop shop for everything multifamily. Now to your hosts, Jake and Gino.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, the chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, it's been a rough week.
You want
Florida next week,
dude? You want to talk about rough? Listen, I got my Father's Day gift today, and it was a surprise at this indoor skydiving thing, and I think I'm pretty sure I was concussed. I had a cup of coffee after. I'm here now, and we got the Thor Daddy coming, so I'm super pumped about that. So today's guest is Thor Conklin. Thor is the host of the Peak Performers podcast, serial entrepreneur, built tons of multi-million-dollar businesses, and we're going to learn some stuff today. We're going to talk about scaling. We're going to talk about how to make our companies as profitable as possible. So without further ado, Thor, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. As a matter of fact, I'm from Jersey, so I really appreciate the accents.
Okay. Well,
no attitudes here, just accents.
No accents, attitudes, or anything. Get I feel
like I'm back home, so that's good. I like it.
Well, let's get this thing kicked off. Tell us how you got started as a profitability coach, because it sounds like something everybody needs, and I want to learn more about this.
Yeah, as a result of unprofitability.
We don't like that. We like the green.
I know, but usually we shift and we move into directions after we've had massive pain, and that's really what it was for me. I had a business that I purchased in 2008. I literally signed the paperwork. It was a manufacturing company. We did our manufacturing over in Asia, and we sold throughout the United States. And I think I signed the paperwork, and on the same day I signed it, the U.S. decided that we were going into a recession. So it was like great timing, If you want to go into business, figure out what Thor's doing and just do the opposite. That's the way it felt in 2008. And I just struggled. I struggled with it over and over again. I kept pivoting. I kept changing things. I kept getting ahead of a market, and then the market would catch up. Things would change. And it was just really frustrating. I had a business that was doing almost $3 million a year, and a small business, but I couldn't figure out how to produce consistent profits. And I'm part of an organization called the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a worldwide organization of entrepreneurs. And I found so many of my co-members going through the same thing. It's like on the surface, yeah, they're doing 15, 20 million, and they're just trying to figure out how to scrape $100,000 out of a thing. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. What is going on? What separates those companies and those individuals making money and those just trying to figure it out?
Wow. So it sounds like you met my pain, because back in 2008, I was in the restaurant, and restaurants are notorious for 4% net. So if we're doing $1.5 million, so if you're doing 4% net, you're jumping out of your seat. You know what I mean? And It's like working 60 plus hours a week, taking all that risk and making 4%. To me, it was an insane thing. But when you grow up in the business, that's what you get used to, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny because right before I bought this business, I had a contract on a restaurant. And I looked at it, I went through my due diligence, and I realized that I have to work there for 5 years, and then I could break even. I was like, that
sounds like slavery.
That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So I figured, hey, manufacturing was a much better way to go.
So what did you do after the manufacturing? You sold that business. What was the next venture you got into?
I started Peak Performance Group. And it was all around taking my background. My first company we were an advisory firm for private equity firms. When they were getting in and out of deals, we were advising them on the risk profiles. And from that, I had the opportunity to look at so many different businesses. And, it's just, let's face it, there are some businesses you just don't want to be in. Amazon today just announced that it purchased Whole Foods. Yeah. I mean, great company. But you have no idea, or some might on the show, that how thin margins are in the food and groceries. I mean, it's ridiculous. There are some industries that I just don't have any interest in ever getting involved with, but I've got clients, I've got prospects that are in those and are trying to figure out, what do I do? So it was really just a yearning to take what I learned personally from a profitability standpoint and the lessons I learned and the answers I found and couple that with my diverse business background that I created Peak Performance Group.
So let me ask you, what do you think, if you can highlight some of the similarities between businesses? Because I have a partner who seems like he understands businesses really well, and he really chunks it down to income and expenses, whether it's food, whether it's restaurant, whether it's retail. What similarities do you see amongst the whole business spectrum?
Well, look, you've got to have somebody that's the visionary, the leader of the organization. You've got to have a very strong sales and marketing group. You've got to have somebody delivering the product, and you need someone that's taking care of the finances. Those are really the 4 areas. Everything else is, kind of interchangeable. And a lot of times, the entrepreneur is that visionary, right? And they're not very good at sales or marketing. And they think that the people, you build it and they will just come. Well, it doesn't work that way. You've got to have a strong sales team. If you have a strong sales team, but you don't have any financial management behind it, whatever comes in the front door just goes out the back door. One of the craziest things, we've all heard this, pay yourself first. We've been taught in school, right? It's income minus expenses equal profits. I think that's BS. It should be revenue minus your profits equals your expenses. Start taking out your profits. Start taking that out first. Pay yourself first, and what's left over, run your company. Because let's face it, if you've got $1 million in the bank, right, that's not being used for anything, you go, okay, I got a lot of money. I'm going to use it for X. I don't really care. Let's make the office a little fancier. We need some better office space. But if you got $2 in the bank, what do? You know what? Let's just work on cardboard boxes out of our garage.
Makes total sense to me. What do you prefer to work with, new business owners or currently businesses that are churning and struggling?
Yeah, no. It seems, to answer your question, no, not new businesses. It's just I'm not set up that way. Mm-hmm. My real zone is, you got to be doing at least $1.5 million in revenue, and my largest client's got just north of $100 million. So it's businesses, but it's got to be somebody that's struggling, right? I mean, if you're not struggling, why bring somebody in? Everything's going great. But I find that in one area or another, something isn't where that owner, that C-level executive, that entrepreneur wants it to be. And it's the case where they're kind of banging their head up against the wall and going, why can't I seem to fix this? Everything I tried doesn't seem to work. But yet I look down the street and these people are killing it. Now, look, the most successful restaurant in the world is McDonald's. They serve shitty food, and if you eat enough of it, you could die.
Hash browns are pretty good. And they got 99-cent ice cream, too, that I like. But, you pick and choose, right?
Right. But you look at it. So no matter what business you're in, someone's figured out how to make money in it. And sometimes when we're in the business so close to it, it's hard to see what we're doing and what's not working and what's working and how things need to change.
Now, I heard you said you don't work with new businesses, but you're an entrepreneur. I mean, could you give the listeners maybe a little framework of how to actually start a business so they can become one of your clients?
Absolutely. And let me frame something as well. If there's a new business out there that's listening, at the end of this, I'll give you my contact information. Reach out. I don't engage with new businesses because just my model's not set up that way. But I'd be more than happy to lend a hand if someone has any questions. So I just want to throw that out. First and foremost, make sure that those 4 areas are taken care of. You've got somebody that can sell. You got somebody that can market. You got somebody to take care of the finances. You got the visionary, and you have somebody to deliver the product. Now, it can be you. You could be in each 4 of those seats. Just know you've got to do each one of those really, really well, or you're not going to have a business. For me, going into business is all about profitability. Make sure you understand how business works. You don't have to get an MBA in finance, but you better understand what the difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting. You've got to understand what your expenses are, what cash flow is all about. Businesses don't go out of business because they don't have profits. They go out of business because they run out of cash. And a lot of people run their business like, I've got a big accounts receivable. I've got a lot of money coming in. I got a lot of profits, but they got no cash to pay their bills.
Mm-hmm. Talking that net. So what are the typical issues you see that you're addressing? There's got to be themes that you're seeing over and over again. Yeah. So let's dive into those a little bit.
Yeah, if you take the word peak and you formed a little triangle at the top of that peak, you put the the P, then the E, then the A, and the K. At the base, you've got to start out with knowledge. And what I see over and over again, people run around going, the reason things aren't going the way they should is because I'm lacking knowledge. So they'll go to this event, they'll order this program, they'll sign up for this webinar. And they're on this constant search for knowledge. Now, knowledge is very, very important. You need to educate yourself and continue to do that. But generally what happens is if they're not getting the results that they need, I find the majority of the time they have no accountability, and that's the A. They've got to be taking massive action, and they've got to be accountable to somebody. Find someone that's going to hold you accountable. Next is the execution piece. You can have the knowledge, you can have the accountability, but if you're not executing on it, nothing else matters. And the execution comes down to generally a psychology that the owner, the executive has that is preventing them from moving to the next level. 20% of the time it's strategy. They're not using a calendar, they're not managing their time. We can go on and on with strategies. But generally, it's the psychology. It's something that's keeping them back that they don't see. Now, if you do all those, then you get to the profitability.
So there's something interesting that I use with my team on a weekly basis, and I call it a cadence of accountability. And it actually came out of going through the Traction book that we were talking about earlier. And it's these things need to happen every week and on specific days for us to meet the bare minimum of what we need to get done. And so it's little reminders, little one-on-one sessions that we have to make sure these things are being done and then essentially being executed. So the stuff that you're saying is kind of right in line with how we run the management arm of our real estate business. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, business is not that sexy. It's about doing the blocking, the tackling over and over and over again and measuring the results. Having a scoreboard that you're able to look at, everybody can look at and go, okay, how are we doing here? What's getting in the way? What do we need to work on more?
It all starts up front with that offensive line, right?
It does. It does. As a matter of fact, everybody I work with, they've got to implement out of, I don't think it was Gino's work. It was Gazelle's, where it's called a huddle. And it's literally just a 7 to 10 minute meeting a couple times a week. You can actually do it every single day where you just get the team together and go, okay, what's going on? What's most important today? What's your number one priority? Great. Anything getting in the way? Do you need anything else from anybody at the table to make it happen? Great. Boom. Next. Boom. And you know what it does? It eliminates all this back and forth in email, and it takes away the clutter, and it defines what's going on. And then you as the leader, if Bobby goes, the most important thing for him to do is finish his, order his new desk chair. You might say, whoa, Bobby, you've got to get that report to me. I need that by 1:00 today. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Guys, this stuff works because, I wasn't even aware of this Gazelle or whatever, but in our business, and I keep going back to it, we do this, I do this weekly with our managers, and I'll give you an example. One of our locations, was really struggling because we were down to maintenance tech. So during the weekly meeting this week, I said, look, the most important thing we got to do is get this tech, because then the other tech's getting burnt out, work orders are getting behind, customer service is lacking. So it was putting this up. This is the top priority. Get this guy in place. We actually just hired him today, and it's these little things that make a huge difference. It's prioritizing, accountability, execution. I'm sold, man. Sign me up. I like it.
Yeah. No, but see, here's the thing. People want a bigger answer, right? They're like, no. Like, what's the secret app I need to employ in my business? That's
do the work. Do the work.
Exactly, do the work. Track and measure. Track and measure and adjust.
Thor, you know what I'd like you to do? I would like you to become a speaker and go speak to all people who love the government, because I've been having a struggle the last few weeks. The two words you say, profitability and accountability, are lacking in every government entity. Let me give you a quick example. MTA, Metro North, going down to Grand Central from where I live. $30 off peak, expensive as hell, no Wi-Fi, uncomfortable. There's no TVs on all the seats. You go on JetBlue, you're flying a lot. There's competition. So I think the profitability and accountability in every business, Jake and I always talk about it, it creates a better business and creates a better marketplace. So I think you got to get a bullhorn and start saying we need profitability and accountability in every area and every
Put it on
sector
a
of our
T-shirt.
lives.
I'll buy one.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm just in business because I want to help people and I want to make the world a better place."
I'm actually getting kind of sick of those people too, because a lot of it is BS, phony stuff that they're hiding behind to get like a social media presence and build up some other stuff, and I think they're being disingenuous. Sorry, I'm going to shut up right now, but anyways, carry on.
I love like what a Tom's shoe company does, right? It sells a pair of shoes at a very high markup, and then it gives a pair away. Great, I love that idea. But Tom's is not going to be able to do anything unless they make one thing. It's called a profit.
That's right.
They've got to make a profit in order to do the good.
It's funny. So, my priest friend, one of my priest friends, told me, "No margin, no mission." So in every avenue, if you can't make money, you ain't. There's no mission involved over there. Why don't you give us one or two examples of success stories of businesses that you've actually chunked down, gotten into, and exploded their business and really helped them out.
Yeah, I think the first one was a company where the owners were making 7 figures. Things were really cooking. They could bring it to the point where they could start making 8 figures, and they said, "You know what? I think we're just going to dial it back, and next year it's just getting a little complicated. We're just going to do less deals, and we're just going to make things a little bit easier for ourselves." I looked at him. I said, "That is the worst plan ever. Congratulations. That's the worst plan I've heard all year." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Have you two looked at yourselves in the mirror? There is no way when September rolls around and you've got more deals on the table, you're going to be like, I want more, I got more." And you're going to do exactly the same thing. I said, "What is your objective? What are you trying to do?" They said, "Well, we really just don't want to be working as hard anymore." I'm like, "Great.
Hire some people."
Hey, there you go.
I'm sorry.
Jump in anytime. That's what I said. I screamed the same way. Start owning the business.
Yep.
Business. Most people call themselves business owners. It's BS. Their businesses own them because they haven't figured out how to make enough profits to bring in the right management team so they can step aside. Look, I own Google. I own Amazon. They've never called me to come into the office. Ever. But I own them. I've got someone working for me. Now, I'll have a very, 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 very small piece of it, but you get the idea.
That makes sense.
Become a business owner. So with them, they got the right team in place, and they'll probably do close to $150 million this year.
Nice.
So, yeah. So it's about stepping in. Another one couldn't figure out how to eliminate a toxic employee. It was their best person, quote unquote, their best person.
What they thought
they were hanging on. It's like, I need this person. I can't lose this person. I've got to do everything I can. And basically, the boundaries were blurred. This person was taking advantage of the organization and was a cancer in it. And as soon as we could get them to take the steps to eliminate that person, business shot up.
So how do you do that? There's a lot of fear around that. I mean, I guess you've got a lot of there's a lot of life coaching going on here, because I'm sure that you really have to break down. Those are all energy blocks. People having those blocks of energy where they're like, I can't do it. It's an assumption. Limiting belief. How do you get them to that point? How do you get them to that point?
Yeah, there's a couple ways. It's my favorite technique is I put up a barrier to the left and I put up a barrier to the right. And first I find out where they want to go and make sure that I'm in agreement with where they want to go is going to be in their best interest. Sometimes people want to go a certain way. It's like, let's rethink this before. But if I agree and they agree, I want to get to this, and we all agree that's a great idea. That's good for you. It's good for your family. It's good for the business. It's good for the employees. It's a win-win-win-win. Great. Now let's put a barrier to the left, a barrier to the right, and then I'm going to get behind you, and we're going to start to build up some pain, some fear of what's behind you, not what's in front of you. And I'll find out what that leverage is and kind of move that closer to them. And then as they kind of move off to the right, you bring in ideas, techniques, and strategies that, whoa, hold on. If we go this way, this is going to happen. So in short, what you end up doing is you creating fear on the left, right, and behind, and that the only thing that doesn't seem that fearful, although there's uncertainty about what's to come in the future or ahead of you, it's a lot less scary than the things around you. So that's one technique, but it's about finding out what they want. Many times it's a dual. They're double bound. In other words, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. But they don't understand what's preventing them from moving forward. They may have a belief system where, you know what, I don't deserve this success. If I become successful, people will not like me anymore. Because in 8th grade, when I did X, Y, and Z, I lost my best friend because he was jealous. So there is a lot of psychology that gets into I want to find out, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are you not taking the necessary steps? That's why I say most of the time it's psychology, it's not the strategy.
No, I was just gonna say, Thor, I want to drill down a little bit more on the common issues. Like, there's got to be like 2 or 3 that you see with a lot of businesses that the folks listening to the show are going to resonate with, and they're going to say, that's me.
Yeah. So number one that I find across the board is that people have little to no procedures. They wing it, and I'm talking large companies just kind of wing it. Culture, zero culture. They don't understand who they are. They don't understand how people are to act. Any of my companies, my culture is the same across the board. And the acronym is URPC bar. If you work for me, urgency, the right thing, problem solver, communication, doing your best, you're accountable, and you respect others the way you want to be respected, has to be part of your core value system. Because I can't teach you values. I can teach you the systems. I can teach you the way to do your job. But I need people that think that way. If you think it's okay to get around to it when you get around to it, if you think it's okay to communicate with a client when you want to and don't get out in front of things, you're not a good fit for me. And I know it right away.
Or anyone.
Most people don't understand what their companies stand for.
Yeah.
So they stand for nothing, and they allow everything. So culture's a huge one. Systems, culture, I see across the board. They've got the wrong people in the wrong seats. Is another huge one, and they're not spending the time to really track and measure and hold themselves accountable. They're just, and I probably go on for a year on this stuff. The other one is they're reactive. They're sitting there and they're waiting for things to happen as opposed to leaning into things. And I work a lot with men. I have women clients as well, but I tend to resonate a little bit better with men because for some reason society has emasculated men, and they bring that same emasculated energy to work, and they get up to lead the organization, and they're like, today, Bob, could you do this? I'm like, come on. I mean, you are the leader of this organization. Step up, say what needs to be done, and get it done.
Take control of that bull.
Take action.
Take control. Take control of it too. I'm sorry.
No.
You see, part of the problem what you're talking about is nobody's taught this in school. We're all mom and pop owners. We all start out in school by going, hey, I opened up a business. I'm doing okay. But nobody has any idea what a system is or a procedure or having a mission statement written out.
Yeah, who's teaching this in school?
Right, I'll give you an example. I'm working with a client. I'm actually doing a turnaround for a client, and they had no procedure, zero. So we started with, they couldn't figure out how to get the mail right. I swear, not kidding. So we sat down and we wrote up the procedure, and then literally the first day we got it in place, it got messed up. And what we left out of the procedure was when the mail comes in, I can't make this stuff up. It just happened last week. When the mail comes in, you need to open the mail because we get a lot of checks that come in with this company. It was like you need to open the mail, and then after you open it, it gets scanned, and we had that piece. But we never they were putting the mail on people's desk, and then nobody was like, well, where's the check from so-and-so? I don't know. I think I put it on their desk. No, I was like,
but they needed a system for that. It was simple,
right.
But they needed a system. Say, when it comes in, we open it, we scan it to the bank, done. Right?
And then what do you do with the original? You throw that one in the trash. You put that one in the file cabinet. You've got to write systems so an 8th grader can understand.
So, I want you to talk a little bit more about this. You talked about men being passive and reactive. Give me some specific – this is like eye-opening to me. Give me some specific examples. Are they just not being the leader? Are they not telling people, hey, this is your job, and holding them accountable, and they need to do it? And talk about the reactive piece too, because I want to hear about this.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about the reactive piece first.
Okay.
I have a theory or a process or a visualization is I want my leaders leaning in. I drive motorcycles, and I have a Cruiser Victory Vegas, and it's got no fairing on it. And at 70 miles an hour, if you're sitting up on that bike and you're not leaning into the bars, you're just getting blown to pieces. It's just whacking you in the chest, and you're just getting beat up. But as soon as you lean into it, the wind actually comes at 70 miles an hour. It lifts your body up, and you're almost like on a pillow of air where it's pushing you up and you're leaning into it, and it's effortless. And what happens is in business, I see so often the leaders are sitting there standing straight up or leaning back a little bit, and issues are coming to them left and right. It's like, I don't want to deal. They're not being proactive on things. They don't have a plan. Their plan is, how do I go into the office and survive to the end of the day? People checking emails every single minute of a day. That's ridiculous. Stop checking emails. Why am I going to disrupt my day, my process, my plan to listen to somebody that's shouting at me? Half the time, they're just trying to sell me something. I don't even want what they're selling or what they're saying. You process email. You do that a couple times a day. That's it. You don't look at it. You don't check it. You process it. I'm sorry. I could get a side note on that all day long. So it's about going and running your plan. Otherwise, somebody else is going to run your plan. So that's the leaning in piece. As far as the emasculation, got a client out on the West Coast, huge real estate brokerage operation, and the CEO has this continued history of just ending up on the wrong side of deals. It's like this deal goes, and he ends up getting the short stick, and then this one, and finally he came to me. He goes, "I don't understand why all these people I run into, why everyone out there is like this." I said, "No, they're not out there like that. You're out there like that. You are allowing this to happen because you haven't stepped up and taken control of the situation. You've been playing with the big boys, and they've been killing you." And it's a shame. This guy is a very highly educated, very smart, very well-paid executive. He's actually the president of his company, doing over $1 billion a year, and still finding himself. So, literally, what I told him, I'm not quite sure what the rating on this show is, but I said, reach down, grab yourself, and take a hold. And remember who you are. And when you get into the office on Monday morning, I want you, the first thing you do is reach down, give a little grab, and make sure that you know that you're the guy in charge.
Give him a shot of testosterone too.
Exactly. And I said something's interesting that's going to happen. After you start leading like the way you're supposed to lead, you're going to find that things appear to be a little bit larger than they were the week before. I said, I don't know how that happens. I'm just telling you, it happens.
Well, likeness attracts. So like attracts. So if you're a victim, you're going to attract other people who are victims. But if you project strength and intelligence, you're going to attract those kinds of people.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when you're young, you don't realize that. But as you get older, you're just like, wow, that makes total sense. So
yeah, and I want to give it to say, this guy wasn't a complete wimp. This guy was not an ineffective manager. He was just in a position where he would control and this is an interesting distinction that I like to work with a lot of my clients. I don't like the word manage because to me, it conjures up an image of, okay, here's a situation that I'm going to try to keep in a box. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to control it. Okay? When you face something, I don't want you managing it. I want you running right through it. I want you to take it on head on. When someone on your team calls and says, I think we got a problem with XYZ client. I don't think anything's going to happen, but I just want to tee it up because it might happen. That is not code for sit by the sidelines and wait to see what happens. That is, let me get on a plane, let me get on a phone, and let me attack this problem and go through it.
That's great. I like that.
Jay-Z said, hit the fork in the road and I went straight. That's what I think we're talking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thor, you've been in business for like the last 10, 12 years when you first started out. How did you see technology being used, and how do you help your clients use technology, I guess, now? Because the internet's changed everything. You don't need 100 people on the payroll. You don't need editors and staff, and you can really cut down. How are you using technology?
Yeah. I am kind of old school. I started my first business 18 years ago, and I try to boil technology down to the simplest form. Email, Evernote, Dropbox, automation, dictation while I'm traveling. But I use Trello as well. But I actually go the other way, and I'll explain why. I find so many of my clients want to outsource and use technology to eliminate everything that they have to do. And they've taken it to the step or the level where they're even utilizing it on their clients. And what I'm noticing is a disconnect with their clients. And what I'm really seeing is a lot of the clients that are actually moving up the chart are actually the ones going back to some of the older school techniques. Picking up the phone, having a conversation, meeting in person, and really connecting with their clients as opposed to having everything on an autoresponder.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not very popular. Everyone's like, yeah, you're the old guy. Yeah, get with it.
I think if you're doing deals, especially if you're doing larger deals, then I think that's extremely important, and I totally subscribe to that.
Yeah, wow. I just find that technology. So many people are spending so much time switching from this app to this program to this system to this software, and they're spending so much time just trying to managing all of this. Now, look, Hootsuite is a great example. For managing social media. Yeah, I utilize that, but I like the one-on-one, face-to-face dealing with someone where I can look in their eyes or talk to them on the phone. That's what's getting.
That's more marketing, though. Hootsuite's a little bit more on the marketing side, but
that's correct.
And you got to systematize, regardless.
Yeah.
But what is like the best tip that you'd like to throw out there for the listeners that are they're in that $1 to $5 million a year space, and and most of our folks are going to have property management businesses. They're probably struggling systematizing. They're probably struggling with those one or two managers that they think they're dependent on. What's the best advice you can give to these folks?
That's so funny. I'm actually doing a turnaround for one of those, and spending quite amount of bit of time doing that. And I'll answer that, but I also want to give something out to the listeners that I think will be helpful. On the property management side, I find that there's such a disconnect of who the client is. You've got the owner of the properties, but the tenants are the ones that are paying the bills. And I see so often that the tenant almost becomes the wrong guy, the guy that's causing the issues, and the good guy is the owner. And I've been working with actually, I've got a couple of clients in this space, is really starting to figure out how to form the relationships with the tenants. You've got it with the owners. Figure out how to do it with the actual tenants, and creating and training your property managers to actually work in a way that is influencing and working with, not being the guy on the other side of the table. So that's made some of the biggest impact and the biggest change in some of my property management folks. But I want to give you a strategy that I think is really, really important. This is something that I found about 4 years ago. And I'd started this probably about 10 years ago. And I was looking for a system that would enable me to go from where I was to where I wanted to go on a consistent basis. And I was actually on the train in Atlanta Airport, and I saw this map right there on the subway system. And in Atlanta, you've got these terminals. You've got the A terminal, B, C, D, E, and F, and they also have a T gate and a B, which is baggage claim. And if you take the F gate, it's figure out what you want. Wherever you want to go, figure out what that end game is. E is make sure you establish an efficient and an effective plan, because you can't do anything unless you have both of those. Make a decision. And then after making a decision, there's a next step, which is actually committing to it. And I see so many people fall down between these two steps. They think they're actually committed, but they're not committed. Years ago, I wanted to go skydiving because I was afraid of that feeling of falling. So I said the best way to do that is just go skydiving. And I did. I booked the reservation. I went to the airport. I got on the plane. I went up in the air. I had the guy strapped to my back. But up to that point, I just decided. When we finally jumped out of the plane, or he actually pulled me out of the plane, I was committed. There was no going back. And so often I see people that are interested in success, interested in this, but they're not truly committed to it. So there's an additional step there. B stands for belief systems. Make sure that you really check in and understand what your belief systems are, and have somebody around you that can point out some of those belief systems that might be getting in your way. This is kind of the sabotage area. Next one, A gate, is actions. Actions and accountability. You got to be taking massive actions, and make sure you got somebody that's going to hold you accountable. And what's really interesting in the Atlanta airport, at the next gate, which is the T gate, which stands for time and tracking and measuring, is you see people get off the train early because they think they're already at baggage claim. They get off and they look around. It's like, wait, this doesn't look like baggage claim. The doors close and the train leaves. And in business, so often we're distracted by that shiny penny, that new opportunity, that bigger deal, and we literally take an affair or step aside from our main business and seek this other deal, only to find out that we just didn't give it enough time. When you plant the seeds in summer, you've got to water them, you got to have the sun come out, and then in the fall we can harvest the crop. It doesn't happen, instantaneously. Time is part of the process. And then, of course, the last one's baggage claim. That's where you pick up your bags of money, bags of whatever you set out to accomplish. That's where you pick it up. But you've got to go through that entire step. And there's a lot of philosophy going around nowadays. It's like, Think and Grow Rich. Great book, by the way, but you've got to do a little bit more than just think. You've got to take some action. You've got to be committed. You've got to have a plan. You've got to be accountable. And everyone's kind of looking for the shortcut. You've got to stay on the train, go through the entire process.
So on a personal success note, what is your best habit for success?
I wake up every day at 4:59, except on the weekend. So during the week at 4:59. So I'm up early. I'm in bed late, early as well. But the number one success ritual that I have is what I call micro commitments. And what I figured out for myself and figured out for others is every single one of us can keep a commitment for the next 5 seconds. If I said to the three of us, stop breathing, we could all do that for 5 seconds. We can't do it for 5 hours. And we try to make commitments that last much longer than we have the willpower or the stamina to keep up with and to see through. So every day I set a set of commitments that I'm going to do for the day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And I'm only going to commit to that for the next 12 hours or however long I'm up. And tomorrow I can do anything I want. But today I'm going to eat healthy. Today I'm not going to drink alcohol. Today I'm going to get these 3 projects done before my head hits the pillow. And of course, when I first started doing it, I put way too much in there. I think I got to bed about midnight that night and said, okay, maybe it takes a little bit longer to do things than I thought. But as soon as I did that,
unfortunately.
I know, right. But as soon as I did that and I started implementing this, it was a complete game changer. Think about it. If you're a husband or a dad and you made a micro commitment every single day to love your spouse, your girlfriend, your kids to the absolute highest, and you're going to do everything in your power to love and adore and take care of them, what kind of results is that going to produce in 30, 60 days, let alone months? And in business, it's about doing the small things over and over and over again and forming the habits. Because I'm all about taking things out of willpower and stamina and driving them into habits to then form addictions and obsessions and things that automatically happen. It's like going to the gym, right? When you first start going to the gym, it's like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And pretty soon you wake up one day, it's just your identity. It's like, what's going on today? I'm going to the gym. Why? It's just who I am. And with these micro commitments, it's a short little commitment. It's only 12 hours. Everyone can do them. And it starts to stack on itself. It's like, you know what? I committed to doing that yesterday, and I got it done. And tomorrow I can do anything I want. Just today, I'm committing to this.
Hulk it out, brosif. What book are you recommending to folks these days?
The One Thing by the guy that started.
I think that's the contender, Gino. I think that's the one we hear the most.
I
think get up early and read The One Thing. If you do that, you've listened to all our shows, man. We get both of those so much. No, but it's good though, because success leaves clues, right? So it's
absolutely.
Traction
by Gino. Is it Wakeman? No,
Wickman.
Gino. Yeah. Great book as well. I mean, here's what when I read a new book, and I probably go through about 4 books a month, is I'm just looking for a couple interesting concepts. If I could find 1 or 2 things out of that book, great.
You're looking for the chicken nuggets, right? From Mickey D's.
It's so funny. I was just rereading a copy of Super Self by Charles Givens. This is a guy that I was reading back in 1980. You had to go to the library to get the books, and it's out of circulation. Someone sold it on Amazon for 50 cents, and it was funny. Just yesterday, I'm reading this book. I'm like, somebody sold all of this wisdom for 50 cents. What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Is that a good one, Gino? You read that one?
No, but I wouldn't.
It's okay. It's not one of my highly recommended books. But the point is, a couple concepts in that book can turn your life completely around.
I bet. Yeah.
And it's so I've been doing this since I was 16 years old, just reading. And acquiring things. And that's really what led me. I said, okay, I've acquired all this knowledge. I'm a smart guy. Why am I not producing consistent results every single time? So that's getting back to your original question of why'd you set up Peak Performance Group.
Yeah.
It takes more of a knowledge. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of execution. And I've identified 85 things that get in the way of execution. I was shocked. Once you get it all done, you got the systems in place. Everything's good. You got your mindset in place. And you start executing, there are 85 things that can get in the way.
Probably more than that.
Yeah, there probably are more than that, right? In other words, the odds are stacked against you.
Sure.
And if you try to attack it like, everything at once, it's one thing at a time. One thing.
Eat what's on your plate.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what I love about the micro commitments. It's been a game changer for me.
What's the best way for listeners to get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way for the listeners to get a hold of me is under all the social media platforms. It's Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. Email address is Thor at thorconklin.com. And as a special gift to your listeners, if anyone's in business out there, C-level executive included, if you're struggling with something and you just can't seem to get over it, you've tried different things and you just kind of bang your head up against the wall. If you send me 100 word or less, do not send me any stories about the issue, a problem, I will get back to you with a solution process that will walk you through how to figure out how to solve that once and for all. So,
Gino, he's worse than me. If it's longer than 3 sentences, he's kicking you out.
Yeah, here's the thing. My hourly rate is $695 an hour. I can't I can't read an email that's going to take 45 minutes and then respond back to you and do,
no,
500.
Man, I hear you. I'm just joking. It's like one of my things where it's like, come on, let's get to the point as quickly as possible because there's enough other crap spinning around, right? So.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If you can't identify your issue in 100 words or less, you haven't identified the issue.
That's right.
You've just told me the story.
That's right. And Jake, the two biggest things I've had on this takeaway on the podcast is you need to know your reason why. I guess we didn't mention that. We didn't, I guess, illuminate it as well as we should. If you can figure out your reasons why, you'll figure out how. And most of us don't know the reasons why. And the second thing is you better damn focus on whatever you want, because if you can't focus on something, you're not going to become successful, whether it's in real estate or whether it's in any type of business. So
yeah. This notion that you can have everything is complete BS. You cannot have everything. You can have anything you want. You can't have everything. And what I mean by that is, if you want a stellar body and you want to hang out with your buddies every night till 2 a.m. drinking beer, ain't going to happen.
Steroids. You can do it.
Okay. You can't go to happy hour every day and be at your son's baseball game every night.
Got it.
And so often, you asked what gets in the way. There's another good point. This obsession with yes. My default is no. You ask me? No. People come to me all the time and says, "Hey, could you speak here?" I'm like, "I could, but I'm not." And they're like, "That's kind of harsh." I said, "Well, but that's really the truth. I could, but I have other things that are more important that particular day." And we get into this pleasing mode of, "Hey, can you do this for me?" "Yeah, I'll do that." "Can you do this?" "Yeah." It's yes, 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 yes. And all of a sudden, there's so much on your agenda, you can't focus on the really important. You've got to default to no. No. No, no, no. I'll consider that. And then the ones that are really, really important, your family, your friends, and the really important stuff in the business, say yes to.
Tough truth.
It's the truth. And most people don't want to hear the truth. But that's the only way I roll.
Oh, shit. That's how I roll. Man, Thor, it's been fun. Really appreciate your time. Gino, you got anything else?
No, that's it. I just want to thank Thor for taking the time out. This can be applied to any business, especially real estate. Guys, get out the pen and paper. Email, 100 words or less. I want you guys to send him one. Be proactive, because this is a great offer. I mean, listen, he'll give you some clarity on something. It's well worth the hour podcast you spent with us, so get out there and start writing. Thor, thanks a lot for being with us. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We trust that you enjoy the Wheelbarrow Profits podcast. Visit jakeandgino.com, your one-stop shop for everything multifamily. See you next time when Jake and Gino share more of their investing secrets with you.